Today, we are having Audava, Shadava, Sampurna ragas, and the ragas are classified according to the Arohana Avrohana. Audava Sampurna Ragam, Shadava Sampurna Ragam. This is the latest classification, and for that, the 72 Melakarta scheme is the pillar. We are having only 72 Melakartas, which are all parents ragas. So, the general classification, what we have to say is Janaka Janya ragas. Janaka means giving birth to other ragas. Janya ragas means derived from that Janaka ragas. It is said in that book, in Venkatamahi's book, it is actually the 16th century book, 16th, 17th century book, 1615. At that
1637,
period,
ma'am.
some books it is given as 1650. Anyhow, in this book only, the scheme of 72 Melakarta scheme is formulated, not given the names. Only the formation of the scales are given. Then the names came, and then now we are using the ragas with a system. The 72 Melakarta ragas are having some systems. For that, first we have to know what is Mela. They are called Melakatta ragas. Now only they are called as Melakatta ragas. In previous century or before that, it is only called as Melas. So what is Mela? How the ragas are taken for Melas, which is headed that particular group of set of notes. This thing will be explained by Padma.
Thank you, Arishji, ma'am. So, with that beautiful introduction as to what ragas are and what is the necessity of having to group ragas, we will move on to the next step of understanding what a mela is. So, the word mela comes from the Sanskrita root mila melane, which means to bring together, or in this particular context, it means to group. Why did we need to group? Like ma'am said, when the number of ragas that we had became a bit unwieldy, we wanted to bring them in some kind of an order, and we also wanted to be able to say some at least fundamental information about those ragas just by understanding the way they are grouped. So they decided, the musicologists of from the 14th century onwards decided that the melas were a very good way to group ragas. Now, what happened before the 14th century? So, one of the most path-breaking texts of Indian music, the Sangita Ratnakara, was written in the 12th century by Sharangadeva. And in the Sangita Ratnakara, like ma'am said, there are the Raganga, Bhashanga, Kriyanga, or those older classifications are all mentioned. But the Mela had not yet taken shape. Now, in the 14th century, we see the Melas mentioned for the very first time in a text of Swami Vidyaranya called Sangita Sara. Very interestingly, Swami Vidyaranya was the pontiff of the Sringeri Matha of the time, and he was the principal advisor of Hakka and Bukka, who started the Vijayanagara Empire. And in a sense, he's kind of the mastermind of the whole Vijayanagara Empire. And his talents and his interests and his skill didn't, wasn't restricted to spirituality or philosophy or, Rajatantra or politics, but it also included music. And lucky for us, we had a text called Sangita Sara, which he had composed a text called Sangita Sara, which gives us a list of melas that he thought were correct to appropriate to group the ragas that were available in his time. And just the table that you see on the screen gives you a general idea as to what was going on over the ages as far as the information that we get to know from texts are concerned. On the right hand side, you see that each author specifies a different number of janyas, means those are the total number of ragas that were in vogue at that time, and then they group it under mela. So for example, in 1550, Ramamatya in Swaramela Kalanidhi, he mentions a total of 66 ragas. So at his time, in his what shall I say, mind, there were only 66 ragas, and he groups them under 20 different melas. And the text that you see are not what shall I say, exhaustive. There are many more, but I have just picked out the ones that are important in terms of the development of the idea of mela. So let's now think about how they conceptualize this grouping. And why it's interesting to understand this is because the way we think of ragas and the way we think of classifying ragas today is quite different from what it was earlier on. So fundamentally, what we wanted to do is we wanted to bring ragas with the same swarasthanas or notes, note positions. We wanted to bring them together and put them into a group. And amongst the ragas of that group, they would pick the most prominent or the most popular one, and that would be the mela. Now, what we should understand is the mela was just a representative of what swarasthanas, the ragas within that group will have, and it was not a singable scale in itself. For example, Mukhari Mela was a group of swarasthanas, and under the Mukhari Mela, there would be a Mukhari Raga, which was a singable raga with a specific oral form, right? Melas were scales, ragas were oral entities. So that distinction was very, very stark and very clear in the earlier texts. Now, as we move in time, we do see that there is a certain evolution of the idea as such, and then we will discover what changes were taking place. By the time we come to the 17th century, where Chaturdandi Prakashika was written by Venkatamaki, it's very interesting what Venkatamaki did. Okay, Venkatamaki in his time says there are 57 ragas and there are 19 melas. That's all there are. But what he does, he says that I want to make a foolproof scientific system wherein any raga within the Carnatic framework will fit into one or the other of these melas. And even though there may not be ragas of this kind present today, I am making way for future creations and future inventions and future discoveries in the raga sphere. So he created a series of a scheme of 72 melas, and but he says these are not singable scales. Don't sing them. You only sing 19 the 57 ragas which go under the 19 melas. The rest of them are just an intellectual creation, and he is very proud of his intellectual creation and is confident and says nobody can do anything better than this. And so far, his what shall I say, his vow has been quite right, though there were many others who thought of different permutations and ways to do grouping of ragas. His 72 melas are still the most accepted way to classify ragas today. So I started out by saying that melas were originally abstractions, right? They were conceived for only one purpose, and that was to classify ragas. But in that time, what was also interesting was that ragas did not need to have all the 7 swaras in order to be called a mela. Let me give you an example. There is a mela called Bhupala Mela. Okay, I am going to sing what we know as Bhupala Raga today. Okay, and that is sa re ga pa da sa da pa ga re sa. This is Bhupala Raga. As you see, Bhupala Raga has sa, re, ga, omits ma, has pa, dha, omits ni, and goes to the octave sa. So we don't have ma and we don't have ni. So how does Bhupala, if it is a mela, how does it represent all the ragas that come under that range? Because isn't it very limited? No, that was not the case. The Bhupala mela was representative of all ragas which had sa, ri, ga, ma, pa, da, ni, sa. Though the raga itself didn't have ma and ni, the Bhupala mela would include all ragas which had the Kaishiki Nishada as well as what we call Kaishiki Nishada now and Shuddha Madhyama. So the concept you see is very different from what we think of ragas and we think of melas today, isn't it? So the most popular raga in that group would be a mela, irrespective of whether it had all 7 notes, irrespective of whether it was Vakra, Varja, or any other kind of raga. All it had to be is it had to be a prominent representative of that group of Swarasthanas. The next step, what happens is that musicologists decide that this is not a very scientific system of classifying the ragas because, like I said, there is always a loophole when there is no ma and there is no ni, right? So instead, they said a mela has to have two characteristics: sampurnata, which means it has to have all 7 notes, and it has to have kramarupa. Kramarupa means it has to have all the 7 notes and all those 7 notes in order. So now we've come to step 2. And in this stage, what happens is that melas still are able to include ragas which have different varieties of swara in Arohana and Avarohana. For example, classic example, Bhairavi. Sa ri ga ma pa da ni sa sa ni da pa ma ga ri sa. I'm just singing the swarasthanas. If you think of Bhairavi Raga, it has Chatushruti Dhayuta in the Arohana and Shuddha Devata in the Avarohana. They're not all the same notes, right? So at that point, at stage 2, melas were able to include such ragas as well. So in the next stage, what happens is the musicologists speak of Sampurna, not Saptaka, Sampurna, Ashtaka, which means you have to have Sa, Ri, Ga, Ma, Pa, Dha, Ni and Sa, and you have to have a homogeneity in the variety of notes that a mela accepts. So, for example, a Kambhoji, which was earlier a mela, Venkatamaki himself calls Kambhoji a mela. His successor, his grandson Muddu Venkatamaki, when he talks of the 72 Melakatas, he makes Kedaragaula the mela of that group of ragas instead of Kambhoji. So, and another interesting thing is that one thing that we should know, Chaturdandi Prakashika, which was written by Venkatamaki, presents the scheme of 72 ragas. But like RSJ Madam mentioned earlier, not all the 72 are hashed out or spelt out in terms of their raga lakshana, or they're not even thought of as entire scales. He just says these are all in the realm of imagination. But in the appendix of the Chaturdandi Prakashika, which musicologists believe to be a work of his grandson, Muddu Venkatamaki, there he lists out all the 72 melas with up there. He gives them names, and he also gives the lakshana of each ragas along with the lakshana of its janyas. So here we see the transition of the melas becoming what he calls raganga raga. So in the Anubandha of Chaturdandi Prakashika, Muddu Venkatamaki says that these are raganga ragas. That means they are ragas that are capable of a full-fledged performance. You can sing it. It does have its own oral shape, though they had not fleshed it out yet very clearly, but the thought, the intent that these should be scales that are sung and not just something that's an intellectual exercise, that's product of an intellectual exercise, that was very much a big shift in the ideation of these 72 Melakartas. And in fact, after Muddu Venkata Makhin, Govinda Dikshitar, Ramaswamy Dikshitar, and even Muthuswamy Dikshitar, people who belong to that school of thought, they still continued to till date, I shouldn't say till date, till the time of Muthuswamy Dikshitar, they still continue to use the term Raganga Raga. In fact, in Subbarama Dikshitar Sangita Sampradaya Pradarshini, he doesn't call them Melakarta or Mela, they are called Raganga Ragas, meaning they are all singable, they all have a unique form, and Subbarama Dikshitar had the fortune of having Muthuswamy Dikshitar's compositions also, which, what shall I say, flesh the entire Swarupa or the form of that raga out very clearly. So, from the time of being just an abstraction of any kind of raga, which included notes even that were not there, now we have come to a point where melas have 8 notes, that is sa, re, ga, ma, pa, dha, ni, sa, and they have to be homogeneous, they cannot be crisscross in nature, they have to be krama, and they are all singable ragas. So, it's a very fascinating way in which, you know, our concept of raga has thoroughly changed. In fact, in the Hindustani tradition, the system of thats, which is a similar idea of grouping their ragas together, the that is different. Nobody ever sings a that, the equivalent of mela. Nobody ever sings. It's not a singable. It's not a singable melody, right? But every that has a raga with the same name below it, and that raga is sung. So, to a certain extent, one can say that the Hindustani tradition has retained the concept of earlier times, whereas Carnatic music seems to have moved in a different direction. I hope that covers it. Now, I will hand over to RSJ Madam. We will move into the schematics or building of the 72 Melakartas, how the system is worked out, and RSJ Madam will walk us through that part. Ma'am?
Thank you, Padma. You explained it in a very clear manner. Everybody will now understand what is Mela, what is Rahangaraga, and what is a singable scale. Now, let us dwell in 72 Melakarta scheme. See what music it is. If it is film music, Carnatic music, or Western music, Chinese music, the notes are only 7. Sajja, Rishabha, Gandhara, Madhyama, Panchama, Daivata, Nishada, of course, Tarasthaita. So, Sarigama, Pada, Ni. These are all the 7 notes, and including Sa, we are creating a scale. Now, except Sa and Pa, the other 5 notes, that is Re, Ga, Ma, Da, Ni. All the 5 notes are having 2 varieties. So what happens? The 7 notes are expanded to 12 swarasthanas. Just I want to play it. What are the 12 swarasthanas? This is Sa. This is Re, but the first variety of Re, that is Suddha Rishabham. See, each Swarasthana has a specific name. So, Suddha Rishabham, then Chadusruti Rishabham, Sadharana Gandharam, Antara Gandharam, Suddha Madhyamam, Pratimadhyamam, Panjamam, Suddha Daivatam, Chadusruti Daivatam, Kaisiki Nishadam, Kakali Nishadam, Sa. See, the pitch is different from what she sang. So, I don't know whether you are able to relate it. For better understanding, I will do like this. This is Sa, Re 1. Why I am saying 1, 2? Because I said 2 varieties for all the notes. So, except Sa and Pa. So, first variety, second variety of Re, First variety of Ga, second variety, first variety of Ma, second variety, Pa, no variety. This is first variety of Da, second, first variety of Ni, second variety of Ni, Sa. Now, these 12 Swarasthanas are the basis, main thing to construct or to the permutation combination of these 12 Swarasthanas brings the 72 Melakarta scheme. I already said there is no difference in Sa and Pa. Just anyhow, Padma is going to put some slides to make you to understand the combinations. But from my point of view, it is easy to see the combinations through some, action. See, in class also we used to do, if 4 students are there, I ask them to stand in a group and make them come by one to how the swaras are joining. Here I am taking 4 fingers. Sa, this previous one is Sa, there is no variety for Sa. Now I am going to take Ma. Ma is the Sa, Ri, Ga, Ma, 4th note. But if you take with Swarasthana, Sa, Ri1, Ri2, Ga1, Ga2, Ma. Ma is the 6th note. So Sa is here, Ma is here. In between Sa and Ma, we have 2 notes, that is Rishabha and Gandhara. Now I am going to keep the Ma as a constant note and Sa as a constant note. The Ma is Suddha Madhyamam. The other 4 notes, that is 2 varieties of Ri and 2 varieties of Ga. It is 4. Take them as brothers. Are you able to see my finger? Is it clear? Okay. Now, he is the youngest one. He is the eldest one. The eldest cannot be a younger one to anybody. The youngest cannot be an elder to anybody. So among the 4 brothers, the youngest one is always youngest. The eldest one is always eldest. But the middle 2 persons to whom they are, or along with whom they are going or accompanying, according to that, their role will get changed. For example, if you take these 2 persons, he is always younger, he is the next one, but comparing these both, he is the elder. So these are all, this is the Suddha Rishabham and Chatushruti Rishabham. Now, the Chatushruti Rishabham is the elder one, so he take the name of Gandhara. That is called Suddha Gandhara. This is you have to understand. So there are only 4 Swarasthanas, but they are assigned 6 names. See the difference. 4 Swarasthanas with 6 names. How the 6 names coming? For that I am explaining this. So this is Suddha Rishabham. Actually, this is Chatushruti Rishabham. This is the original position of that particular note. But when it accompanying this note, it is a bigger variety or the higher variety, and it is taken or considered as Gandhara. That Gandhara is called Suddha Gandhara. The original position is Chatushruti Rishabham. The sound is Chatushruti Rishabham, but it is considered as Suddha Gandhara. Same way, if these 2 goes together, he is always the, the eldest one. He is younger. He is actually Gandhara. That is Sadharana Gandhara, Antara Gandhara. But this Gandhara is considered as Rishabha, and it is named as Satshruti Rishabha. Satshruti. See, the Rishabhas are having the name prefix to them as Shruti. Chadushruti and Satshruti. There is no Shruti value for Gandhara, not value, name for Gandhara or Nishada. Only the Rishabha and Daivada is having the Shruti name along with them, Chadushruti and Shatshruti. Now, how it is combined? Let me explain it. So, if these two goes, this is Suddha Rishabham and this is Chadushruti Rishabham, but it is temporarily called Suddha Gandhara. The next combination is these two, that is Suddha Rishabham and Sadharana Gandhara. The next combination is these two, Suddha Rishabham and Antara Gandhara. There is no change or name change in these two notes. They are fixed. So along with this, the three notes accumulate. So it is closed. Now this re is taken. Along with that, this note will come. That is these two. Now this is Chadushruti Rishabham and this is Sadharana Gandhara. No dual name. Both are called as with that same name. Then this is closed and that second and fourth go together. This is Chadushruti Rishabham. This is Antara Gandhara. Okay. So 1, 2, 1 raga. This 2, 1 raga. This 2, 1 raga. Then this 2, 1 raga. This 2. Then this 2. The last one is this 2. Again, this is dual name note. Original name is Sadharana Gandharam, but it is called as Shatshruti Rishabham for the sake of 72 Melakarta scheme. So we are having two Vivadi notes. What is Vivadi? If a note is having a original name and if it is called temporarily with another name as Gandharam or Rishabham, they are Vivadi notes. So the Chadushruti Rishabham is originally the real note and it is taken or assigned as or called as Suddha Gandharam. So it is one Vivadi note. And Sadharana Gandharam, when it come with the Antara Gandharam, it is called Shatshruti Rishabham and that is also Vivadi note. So two Vivadi notes are there in the 4 Swarasthanas. So the 4 Swarasthanas are Sajjam, Suddha Rishabham, Alais, Suddha Gandharam, Sadharana Gandharam, Alais, Shatshruti Rishabham, Antara Gandharam. So these are all the 4 notes. These are all come with Suddha Madhyamam. If you replace the Suddha Madhyamam with Pradimadhyamam, again you will get another 6 ragas. It's a different set. First, let us take this. Like that, the same way, the Daivada Nishadam also, Panjamam is there, no variety. 2 das, 2 nis. Suddha Daivadam, Chadushruti Daivadam, Kaisiki Nishadam, Kakali Nishadam. So when Suddha Daivadam and Chadushruti Daivadam come together, the Chadushruti Daivadam is called as Suddha Nishadam. Because it is a higher variety. So it should be assigned the name Nishadam. So Suddha Nishadam. Same way, these 2 notes when come, it is actually Kaisiki Nishadam and it is Kakal Nishadam, but it is called as Shatshruti Daivatam because it is a lower variety among the 2. So the lower variety means the pitch is lesser, so it is considered as Chadushruti, Shatshruti Daivatam and Kakal Nishadam. So here also we are having 4 Swarasthanas with 6 names. Suddha Daivatam, Chadushruti Daivatam, Alais Suddha Nishadam, Kaisiki Nishadam, Alais Shatshruti Daivatam, Kakali Nishadam. So there is no dual name for the first note and the last note. Only the 2 notes in between the 4 Swarasthanas are having dual name and it will become again 6 names. So the total is, apart from Sa and Pa, we are having 4 Swarasthanas of Ri and Ga, but having 6 names. 4 Swarasthanas of, that is positions of Daivada Nishada with 6 names and 2 Mas. This is the, what do you say, the 16 Swarasthana names. by combining them, that 72 Melakarta scheme is first, what do you say, array. How they are splitted or how they are grouped, these things you can see in the chart slide. Padma,
Yes,
can you
ma'am.
explain them?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
I would just like to add one more point to what ma'am
Sure.
said. When Venkatamakhi, works out the whole scheme of 72 Melakartas, he gives kind of an mnemonic or a coded name for each of the Swarasthanas, such that he doesn't have to reiterate Chatu Shruti Rishabha, Shat Shruti Rishabha all over the text at several times. So he gives them kind of code names. So the three names of Rishabha would be, if you look at the left side of the slide, they are Ra, Ri, and Ru. So, like ma'am said, variety number 1, the youngest is Ra. Variety number 2, that is Chatushruti Rishabham, is Ri, and Shatshruti Rishabha is Ru. Similarly, with Gandhara, there are three varieties. One is called Ga, one is Gi, and one is Gu. So the lowest Gandhara, which is equivalent to Chatushruti Rishabha, that is Ga. The Sadharana Gandhara is Gi, and the Antara Gandhara is Gu. And you will see with the in the slide there, you will be able to see that this is how the ragas combine. So Ra combines with Ga, Ra combines with Gi, Ra combines with Gu. So you have these standard formats: Raga, Ragi, Ragu, Rigi, Rigu, and Rugu. So we arrive at 6 different permutations just using the notes Rishabha and Gandhara. And at the end, after these combinations are made, they are attached with either Shuddha Madhyama, which is Ma, which is codenamed Ma, or Pratimadhyama, which is codenamed Mi. Now, let's move to the next stage. So, we have 36 Shuddha Madhyama and 36 Pratimadhyama ragas. Like we saw in the previous chart, we have 6 varieties of Rishabha Gandhara permutations. And how Venkatamakhi designs the whole scheme is that we will have a group of ragas which with each of these raga, ragi, ragu, rigi, rigu, or rugu, which means we have essentially 6 sets. Now, what comprises the rest of that set? With the uttaranga, or the latter part of the ragas in one group or a chakra. So, for example, let's take the case of raga. Suppose we have a group with the combination with Ra and Ga that will combine individually with Dana, with Dani, with Danu, with Dini, with Dinu, and Dunu. Just like ma'am said, the process is just repeated again. Whatever we did with Rishabha and Gandhara, we repeat the same process with Dhaivata and Nishada, and we get 6 varieties of Dhaivata. Now, we have 6 varieties of Rishabha Gandhara with 6 varieties of Dhaivata Nishada. When you put the two together, or when you permutate these together, you get a total of 36 ragas. So now we have 36 ragas with this and Shuddha Madhyama. When we change the variety of Madhyama, it becomes another set of 36 ragas with the same combination, and totally put together we have 36 and 36, which make 72. It's very interesting when Venkatamakhi speaks about the 36 Pratimadhyama Mela. So he kind of preempts, the objections and questions that other musicologists might raise, and said, just because you change one swara, the madhyama, does it make it a different raga altogether? For which Venkatamakhi gives a very nice analogy, and he says, you take a massive pot of good milk, okay, and then you had a dot of curd. Doesn't that make the entire milk into curd? Similarly, you add change one small thing, one swara sthana, you change in a raga, it becomes a completely different sound entity, which is, I think, a very beautiful way to picturize, or what shall I say, visualize ragas. So that was Venkatamakhi. Now, having made this, I just want to show you a sample of the first chakra, that is the first group of 6 ragas, what swarasthanas it would have. I will sing them and show it to you so that you have you are able to appreciate that aspect as well. So here we go. This is Raga Kanakangi, in the first raga of the first chakra. So you go sa, ra, ga, ma, pa, da, na, sa. I'm saying ra, ga, ma, da, na just for ease of your understanding. When we actually enunciate the swaras as part of performance, any variety of Rishabha you sing as Re only. This is just for you to understand. I will sing the next subsequent ragas in the normal way. This is Ratnagi. Sa, re, ga, ma, pa, da, ni, sa. Third raga, Ganamurti. Sa, re, ga, ma, pa, da, ni, sa. All these ragas are just changing by one note, okay? Sa, re, ga, ma, pa, da, ni, sa. This is Vanaspati. The next raga, Manavati. Sa, re, ga, ma, pa, da, ni, sa. The sixth raga of the first chakra, Tanarupi. Sa, re, ga, ma, pa, da, ni, sa. So, these are how the ragas are made using the permutations and combinations with the Rishabha, Gandhara, Dhaivata and Nishada. I've just given a sample of one chakra, one set of 6 ragas. Now the subsequent sets, like we discussed, will be Ragi and then the same varieties of Dhaivata, Nishada and so on. So the entire set of 72 Melakartas is made up of 12 such chakras, each chakra having 6 ragas each, totaling up to 72. Now here
One
is
minute.
a... Yes,
One minute, Padma.
Yes,
You sing one scale with Pradimajimam also.
Oh, sure.
How it changes?
So I
Show
will
it.
show you the same, the 7th chakra first raga.
At least Kanakangi and Chalakam.
Yes,
Kanakangi
exactly
and Chalakam.
Right. Exactly. So now I showed you the first raga of the first chakra, right? That is Kanakangi. This is how it goes. Sa, re, ga, ma, pa, da, ni, sa. This is Kanakangi. Now we'll shift to raga number 37. That is the first chakra of the Pratimadhyama set, right? That would be sa, re, ga, ma, pa, da, ni, sa. This is how a Pratimadhyama raga would sound. So on your screen, now you see like a charted representation of the 72 melas with Shuddha Madhyamas on the right hemisphere and Pratimadhyamas on the left hemisphere. You see them divided into chakras and then each of the ragas with their names. So the next and a very, very fascinating and interesting way that the schematics of the 72 Melakartas have been put together is the use of these mnemonics. Mnemonics are any device that help you to remember something easily or act as a memory aid in some way. Within the set of 72 Melakartas, there are 3 sets of mnemonics. One with the names of the chakras. Now, we saw that there are 12 chakras. The 72 ragas are divided into 12 chakras. So each of these chakras has a particular has a name which has a particular connotation, and we will take a look at that now. For example, chakra number 1 is called Indu chakra. Indu means the moon. we have only one moon, and therefore the word Indu itself represents the number one, and therefore you are pointed towards the fact that it is the first chakra. Similarly, Netra means eye, and there are two eyes, so Netra chakra refers to the second chakra. Agni. According to scriptures, Indian scriptures, there are three types of fires: the Garhapatya, Dakshina Agni, and the Ahavaniya Agnis, and those are referenced when they name Agni as the third chakra's name, because it represents the number 3. There are 4 Vedas that represents the number 4. There are Bana means arrow. The arrows of Manmatha, the Cupid, he has 5 arrows with fragrant flowers, and that is referenced by putting Bana as the 5th chakra. Ritu means season. There are 6 seasons, therefore the 6th chakra. Rishi, the Sapta Rishis are famous. There are 7 great sages. Vasu, Ashtavasu, they are elemental deities. There are 8 of them. Brahma, there are 9 Brahmas or Prajapatis. It These are not exactly the Brahma, Vishnu, Maheshwara, Brahma. It's a different thing, and I think there are more what shall I say, competent scholars to talk about that within the faculty. So I will leave that to them. Dishi means direction. There are 10 directions. Therefore, it refers to the 10th chakra. Rudra, Ekadasha Rudra, that means 11 Rudras. Aditya, Dwadasha Adityas, there are 12 Adityas, forms of the sun. Interestingly, when the sun moves into the different zodiac signs, right, or what we call Rashi, the sun has a different impact on the earth, and therefore they are looked upon as 12 different forms of the sun in itself. It's an interesting thought in iconography, but in any case, there are Dwadasha Adityas, and that is why the 12th chakra is called Aditya chakra. Now let's move to the second kind of mnemonics. Within every chakra, each raga has a particular code. Now, the first raga of a chakra will have the name Pa. It doesn't have any particular meaning, but it has the code word Pa. Second one Shri, third Go, fourth Bhu, Ma, and Sha. Now, what is this useful for, right? So let us assume that one wants to represent or very quickly understand the third raga in the third chakra, right? So as we saw earlier in the earlier chart, the third chakra is called Agni, and the third raga of a chakra is called Go. So if we say Agni Go, that would do. Even if you don't remember the name of the raga per se, Agni Go is enough to let you know or to tell you all the Swarasthanas that belong to that particular raga. So it's a very nice method, because you have 72 ragas and you have to remember so many things. So they created a certain technique by which we can remember things easily. And also, I think my personal feeling is that we come from an oral tradition. So much of scriptures, much of knowledge was learnt by rote, and having memory tricks or having things to ease memory was a very big part of learning, and therefore these are all reflections of that culture, I think. Next, and the final and the most interesting mnemonic feature of the system of Melakattas is the Katapayadi system. Now, people who learn music think Katapayadi Samkhya is something that was discovered by musicologists, but that is not correct. Katapayadi is like an alphanumeric system, so where syllables represent certain numbers, and this formula was created for the use application in mathematics, astronomy, grammar, and now we use it in music as well. For example, a very quick example: when mathematicians and astronomers wanted to have a very detailed description of the number pi. You know that the number pi has 3.14 and several decimal points after that, isn't it? So what the mathematicians of that time deciphered was that they made a beautiful metric verse where every character, every syllable would denote one particular number, and the entire syllable would give you more than 20 points in the decimal of the number pi. So that was a brilliant way for them to remember such an important and difficult number to memorize. So that being said, now let's move on to see what the Kattapayadi is and how it is designed, right? Now, every alphabet is assigned a number, and these syllables and alphabets are used to represent these numbers. Now, look at the table in the chart. Vowels are assigned the number 0, okay? And for people who are familiar with Sanskrit, this is easy because most of these relate to alphabets of the Sanskrit language. So the alphabets nya and na also have the number 0 assigned to them. Ka to jha, that is ka, kha, ga, gha, nga, cha, cha, ja, jha. These 9 alphabets have the numbers 1 to 9 assigned to them in that order. Similarly, ta, tha, da, dha, na, ta, tha, da, dha. These 9 alphabets again have the numbers 1 to 9 assigned to them in that order. Pa, pha, ba, bha, ma. These 5 alphabets are assigned the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 in that your order. Ya, ra, la, va, sha, sha, sa, ha. These 8 alphabets are assigned the numbers 1 to 8 in that order. And whenever conjunct consonants are in play, then the last of the consonants, the one that is attached to the vowel, is the one that we have to select. So this is how the Kattapayadi system is formulated. Now, if you look at the table on the screen, you will see which alphabets have which number assigned to them, right? I will quickly move to the next. Now, how do you work out this Kattapayadi formula and how does it apply in the 72 Melakarta scheme? That's the next item in question. Let's, for example, take the case of a raga, Maya Malava Gaula. So this is a raga that everybody is familiar with, and it also happens to be a Mela raga. Now what you do, step 1, you select the first 2 syllables of the name of the raga. In this case, ma and ya. Step 2. Now we figure out what number works for each of these. So as I say, ka, ta, pa, yadi is the name, right? So ka is number 1, ta is number 1, pa is number 1, ya is number 1. Okay, using that, let us calculate. Ma, we start from pa, this case, pa, pa, ba, bha, ma. That gives us number 5. The second syllable, ya is a number 1 in itself. You see, ka, ta, pa, ya, adi sankhya, right? So ya is a number 1. So we have number 1. And in step 3, you have to invert the 2 numbers. So that gives you 1 and 5, which is the 15th Mela. So Maya Malava Gaula happens to be the 15th Mela. So in this way, you can work out the numbers of the ragas or the numeric position of the raga in the scheme of 72 Melakatas. Now, why is it important for us to know the numeric position? Because the scheme is worked out in a very organized way. And once you know the organization or the methodology of the organization, if you know the number of the mela, even if you don't know the name, you will be able to tell the entire list of swaras. Let's take this for an example. Right now we have Maya Mallavagaule, which is the 15th mela. And what does that mean? So the first 2 chakras have 6 ragas each, which means 12 ragas are completed in chakras 1 and 2. Now 15th mela will be a part of the 3rd chakra. So 3rd chakra means it has the swaras raga, ragi, ragu, which means Shuddha Rishabha and Antara Gandhara. So sa, ri, ga, ma. So that's what is going to be in terms of this Utpurvanga. Now, the 15th mela, after 12 comes 13, 14, 15, right? So 15 will be the 3rd mela in the 3rd chakra. So the 3rd mela in a chakra tells us what variety of Daivata and Nishada that raga will possess. In this case, it is Da Nu. So Let me turn the Shruti on because that makes it easy for you to relate to it. Sari ga ma. This is the Purvanga. Now, da and nu in the Uttarangam. Pa da ni sa sa ni da pa ma ga re sa. So, even if we don't know that a raga is called Maya Malavagaula, just by virtue of knowing that it is the 15th Mela, we'll know that these are the particular Swarasthanas. So, that way, the Katapayadi is an incredible tool for us. Even if we forget one thing or the other, we will always be able to find our way back. So there's just one or two things about the Kattapayadi formula that I want to share in terms of these 72, and that happens to be in the case of using conjunct consonants. Now, if you remember, I said earlier that in the case of conjunct consonants, the latter part of the conjunct consonant, the one that is attached to the vowel, is what is to be used, right? But there are some cases that do, and there are some cases that don't follow this rule as well. On your screen, you see two examples. Ratnangi, which is the second mela, has one conjunct consonant, ra, and the second syllable is thna, right? It's a combination of th and na. So if you look at that, ra, th is number 6. So ta, tha, da, dha, na, ta is number 6. So that is not the correct number, but na is 0. Therefore, when you invert 0, 2 and 0, it becomes 0, 2, and Ratnagi is the second mela. But if you look at the other example, which is on the right, of a raga called Chakravaka. So in Chakravakam, the first syllable is cha, second syllable is kra. It has a k and a r. In that case, what happens? The cha is number 6 because ka, kha, ga, gha, nga, cha, that is number 6. Ka is at 1, that's easy. Ra is number 2 because it is ya, ra, right? Ra becomes number 2. But in this case, if you use the last part of the conjunct consonants, you will get a number 26, which is not the right one for Chakravakam. But if you use the number for k, which is 1, and then you invert the numbers 6 and 1, you invert them, it becomes 16, which is the correct number for Chakravakam. So though the Kattapayadi formula is being used in the 72 Melakatta scheme, it works very well for most cases, but there are some where the rules are not followed to the T. So you will have to know a little bit of detail about the ragam to actually be able. There are about 6 or 7 cases like this. And another one is the case of the Nattabhairavi raga. Uh, Nattabhairavi is a popular raga. It's the 20th mela, and unfortunately, the name Nattabhairavi does not conform to the Kattapayadi Samkhya at all. The original name of that mela was Narabhairavi. So, if you use the name Narabhairavi, then the raga will fit correctly with the Kattapayadi Sankhya, but not the other. It doesn't work for Nattabhairavi. So it's a very fascinating area to understand, and there are lots of ups and downs within the Kattapayadi and its application in the 72 Melakattas. But that will need a larger time frame. I will now hand over to RSJ ma'am for further points. Ma'am.
Yes. Thank you, Ma. See, the system or the scheme is completely covered by us. Actually, what I want to add is whatever she sang or I played are only scale. Though they are Melakarta ragas, we are sing it as scale only, because to make it as a ragam, we need some gamakas to be included. Here, just I want to share my view with you. There are two ragas, Barali and Natai. These two ragas are Vivadi raga. They are all older than the 72 Melakatas. The other ragas are actually some ragas like Mayamalagoli. Shankaraparanam, even Mecha Kalyani. Some ragas are popular or older than the 72 Melakarta scheme, but other ragas are created ragas. What she said is correct. But to make them as raga, we need some gamakas, ornamentation for all notes. Here, if you take the second set Vivadi note, that is Satshudi, Rishabam, and Satshudi Daivatam, we can oscillate it. See? So, that two notes, that is Satshudi Rishabam and Satshudi Daivatam, can be handled or what do you say, rendered with Gamakam. Whereas the Suddha Gandharam and Suddha Nishadam, except Varali, so that only I said it first, except that Ragam, the other ragas which are having the Suddha Gandharam and Suddha Nishadam, the note is always handled or rendered with plain manner. Then what is the beauty of that scale? It's a scale, but it is considered as a raham. Then what is the beauty of that notes? So, see, the glide is very important. Mostly, in my view, I studied or what do you say, researched so much in Vivadi Ragas. Most of the Vivadi notes, why I am talking about Vivadi, the other scale are very common. If you take Shankaraparanam, if you change one note, you will get another Raham in that chakram, and it is popular. And also, we can easily add some Gamaka to that note, which is, what do you say, changed. But the Vivadi Ragas are very unique because of the 72 Melakarta scheme only, they are all introduced. To handle them, we have to understand the Gamaka properly. So, still I am playing in plain manner only. But in that plain manner, the main thing is you have to hold the Vivadi notes as a Dirghaswara. That is very important. It is easy in playing in instruments, but it is very difficult to sing it in voice. Easy. But if you come across any composition in the Vivadi Ragas, definitely the Vivadi note is always long note. Whether it is Vara, even in Varali, if you take Kana Kana Bhuti, see? Other notes are single notes. It's a speed break. If you touch the Vivadi Swaram, you have to land there. Then only it will be established. So, even in Satshudi Rishabha Daivata case, also the same. Nothing wrong. But to establish that note, Jagada, it's not a actually, but anyhow, the Rishabam is Satshudi Rishabam. Jagadanandaka, take that. Gagana or Sasani pa pa sasari sasamamari samama pa mama pa mamari. That oscillation or the elongation of the Vivadi notes reveals the Vivadi ragas more beautifully. So these things, as a student, who are watching in this group, so many students will be there. You have to understand these things when you are handling Vivadi Ragas. Where you are playing or singing a composition or alabana, understanding 72 Melakata scheme is different. Understanding the Melakata Ragas is different. Each raga has a unique grahaswaram, nyasaswaram. These are all very important to handle a raham. So that only I am particular about this. So, if you take even what raham, um, Pratipatima raham, like the first raham, Chalagam. So otherwise you have to give it as double note. That is general. But if you practice these things while you are, see, it's not necessary you have to learn a piece in these ragas. You can use it as a exercise. In the early morning, when you are starting for sitting for practice, take one Vivadi Raham or take one by one all the 72 Melakatas and practice them with Akaram. So it helps you to stick on to the Swarasthana. You can easily see how she sang all the Vivadi Ragas. It is not now. Now she is, I think, around 35 or 40 years. When she was a
Thank you,
student
ma'am,
in Madras
for the
University,
compliment.
she is only 20 years old at the time. I only taking this, used to take this paper. I asked her to sing all the 72 Melakartas in Alankaram. Without any flaw, she used to sing. So that practice as a student you need. That is my not request advice for the students, music students. If it is a instrumentist, then you have to practice them in instrument also. It helps you to get flow in these Vivadi Ragas. So that only I am advising all the students practice these, not only Vivadi Ragas, all the 72 Melakatta Ragas, the Alankaram. In Alankaram, you apply everything in Alankaram and practice it in Swara form as well as Akara form. It helps you to develop your music knowledge as well as Swarasthanas. It strengthens your Swarasthanas. That is my kind advice. And anything else to, nothing to
Ma'am, I'd like to
expand this
just add.
Malakatta.
I'd like to add a
Yeah,
few
sure.
points, ma'am.
Sure, ma,
So,
sure.
so far now, ma'am touched upon a very important thing. A shift in our approach, like our understanding. Now, first we tried to understand the 72 Melakatas on an intellectual level as a system of scales with different Swarasthanas. Now, ma'am touched upon the idea of them being ragas. Now, to be a raga, right at the outset, what was discussed was that it should have particular phrases that bring out the emotion of a raga, and that is very important. And to think about it, just given a set of 7 swaras, trying to create a melody out of that makes cogent sense, that and which is unique, a unique sound to that raga, is very challenging. It's not very easy, and to that we have to credit that to the great composers that we have had. See, because like we said, these melas, many of these melas started out as just abstract scales, right? They weren't melodies, they weren't tunes, but who made those tunes? Who made Ganamurti a recognizable raga, right? Something that you listen and you immediately catch and say, okay, this is the Ganamurti raga. That credit goes to the composers. And right from earlier composers like Ramaswamy Dikshita to Muthuswamy Dikshita to Tyagaraja, who really expanded the whole range of ragas that we have in use today. They have created compositions which have these scales put in a melody framework, right? It's an actual tune to listen to, and that was a big jump in the status of these scales when they actually become ragas that we are able to sing and perform. This is one thing. Secondly, also one final thing I want to share with you is that aside from the 72 Melakartas, there were several other efforts that went on where scholars and musicologists and Lakshanakaras, they put forth different, ideas for the 72 Melakartas. For example, one person said that, okay, you take two Rishabhas and call one Gandhara. You take two Gandharas, call one Rishabha. You take two Dhaivatas, call one as Nishada. You take two Nishadas, call one as Dhaivata. But why have you left two Madhyamas alone? Right? You can take to both Madhyamas, omit the Panchama, and call the latter Madhyama as a Panchama. Isn't it? I mean, logically, it makes sense. And therefore, they created a set of another 72 ragas like this, and that would become one set. Another musicologist said we can have ragas where Arohana has Shuddha Madhyama and Avarohana has Pratimadhyama. That became another set of ragas. And so many different people put forth new ideas and created mela schemes that were that yielded many more number of ragas. But all that being done and all that being said, we still are most comfortable with the 72 Melakartas, because as far as performance goes, as far as our the singability of these scales go, we are at the moment comfortable with this set of scales. We never know what the future holds. Maybe there'll be musicians who are so good and who are so capable that they will do these scales with utmost ease, and I'm sure there are some who can already do that. But for the moment, the Carnatic music's field has chosen the 72 Melakartas to be its favored way to classify ragas. So with that, ma'am, if you have anything to add, ma'am, if not, we can open for questions.
Yes.
Thank you, R.S. Amma and Padma Garu. It's wonderful. So very well articulated and explained. Even for people who don't know much music, it's easy to understand. So thank you for listeners. Thanks for joining in. If you have any questions, please raise the hand. It's in the participants panel. If you raise the hand, we can take your questions in the order that we receive them. So please don't type them in the chat box. You can ask the question yourself. Just raise the hand in the participants window. If you don't ask questions, then we will have our professors ask you questions. We will randomly pick somebody and we will say, what is number 27? So,
well, if there are no questions, that means one of two things. Either everybody went to sleep because it was putting them to sleep, or it was so illuminating that there were no doubts.
There is a question on the chat from Aparna Sate. Why don't you ask your question?
Okay, so Aparna Garu, Aparna Sate has a question. Would like to know why there are 72 Melakartas and only 10
Thoughts. 10 thoughts in Hindustani.
Yeah, 10 thoughts in Hindustani
music. Should there be comparable?
Would you like to go with that, ma'am?
You explain.
So this is my understanding of it. Of the 72 melas, 32 of them are non-Vivadi ragas and 40 are Vivadi, right? So let's assume we have even 32 ragas with because none of the 10 thoughts, let me put it this way. In Hindustani system, we don't have the idea of calling Gandhara as Rishabha. You just call them as two Gandharas. For example, if you take a rag like Jog, it has both Gandharas coming next to each other, but you sing them as ma, ga, right? You don't necessarily have to sing ma ga re sa. But in Carnatic music, the ideology or the concept became very different when we started using multiple names for the same swarasthana, which in Hindustani music they do not do. So the necessity for having Vivadi melas does not exist, because in those cases they will just be like bhashanga ragas, comparable to what we call bhashanga ragas. Okay, that being said, we have eliminated 40 out of the scene. Now we have 32 ragas left over, and you ask the question why there aren't 32 comparable thoughts in the Hindustani system. My understanding is this, and if Shriram Parshuram sir is around, he can correct me. It's that in Hindustani music, they did not see the need to have an absolute and exact classification of the raga. If the raga is close enough to one, for example, let us take a case like Charukeshi, right? Charukeshi is a raga that they borrowed from the southern system. It doesn't necessarily fit exactly into any of the 10 thoughts, but they will fit it in the closest one. For them, the notion of having a general idea of what the ragas under that group will, what swarasthanas they'd have, that was all they looked for. They weren't looking for an exhaustive set of permutations and combinations. So it was more for practical use, for them to understand some few details of the raga. They didn't expect it to be exhaustive, or they didn't expect the ragas to be exclusive. This is my understanding. If Sriram sir, I don't know if he's around, he can probably enlighten us
sir
more.
was here earlier,
Okay.
but I do not see him now.
But this is my take on why Hindustani music has only 10 thoughts and not 32.
Yeah, I can say something about that a little bit. Part of the reason that the 10 thoughts are considered to be, or represented as a circle quite often, the circle of thoughts, is because of the times of day when a sitar player would go from one of the portions of the day to the next. And in order to change the strings, you have to change the setting of the frets to change some of the basic notes of the scale. And by changing only one fret, moving from one thought to another, it made the musician's life much simpler going through the 24 hours of the daytime. There's another reason that we use in Hindustani music, we use the 10 basis. And that's very interesting because, as you said, many rags are borrowed from Carnatic music into Hindustani. Well, the rag Bhairav is a very good example of that, which got included into the 10 thoughts, although it is, tonally unrelated step by step to all of the others in the circle. But it became so popular, possibly, I think, at the time of Purandaradasa, and possibly because of influence of Arab musicians or musicians from the Gulf, where that scale is so fundamental to Arab music. So actually, it became important in Carnatic music at the same time as it did in Hindustani music. And it can be related to the 10 thoughts by expanding the 10 thoughts by one note for each thought, and then one more note for each thought. So you come from 10 thoughts to 20 thoughts to 30 thoughts, and you reach the mathematical progression of the scale, which is Bhairav, in the 32nd of the 30 of the thoughts, the 10 thoughts, the 20 thoughts, and the 30 thoughts. The second one of those, the 32nd thought, is the Bhairav scale. So it's very interesting how history plays a role in shaping musical preferences. And Bhairav thought is now one of the most important thoughts in all of Hindustani music, just as it is very important in Carnatic music, but it was not one of the oldest rags by any means. Is that correct, Dr.
Yes, that would be right to say.
Thank you, Dr. Jayalakshmi Garu.
Yes, yes, sir. Your view is correct.
Thank you, Dr. Amy, and for everybody who is here, Dr. Amy Catalin. She is one of our board of trustees at the University of Silicanandra. She is a professor at UCLA and has done so much research in the folk
Yes.
music of India. She travels extensively to India, spends close to 6 to 9 months every year there. So you could see, and we are very happy, Dr. Amy, to have you on the board driving this university forward. Thank you.
Thank you for all the answers. I really appreciate it.
Yes, there's a book that you could read about this. It's called The Ragas of North Indian Music, Their Structure and Evolution. And it's written by my late husband, Nazir Ali Jarazboy. And it's kind of a classic in the study of North Indian music. It's been reprinted many times, first in England and then in India and then Pakistan, and it's been reprinted again twice in India. And I think they may still have a few copies left in India of the most recent reprint with an extra chapter as well. So I hope you can get a look at that. And they're recording with it too, illustrations of the rags.
Thank you.
That's,
Thank you, Dr.
that's very helpful. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Dr. Amy. And we can have some of those books if we can get some, we can put them in our university library. So certainly, that would be helpful for our students to have a reference and other things, Dr. Amy. So thank you. So we have a question from somebody whose name is Galaxy S9 Plus. Galaxy S9 Plus. You have raised the hand. Please unmute yourself and ask your question, please.
Hi, my name is Shivakumar. I don't have a question per se, but I wanted to share something very interesting and relevant to the 72 Melakarta discussion. My guru and uncle, Professor S.R. Janakraman, is fairly well known in the music circle in Carnatic music. And he was a professor at Tirupati Music College. And he once asked a question as part of a quiz. The question was, name the Melakarta that has got the scale, Sarigam, that has got the Arohanam, Sarigama Padanisa. So people thought, okay, what Re, what Ga, and they were asking. He said, he just repeated the question, name the Raga which has got the Arohanam, Sarigama Padanisa. So after one student, apparently, out of frustration, because the question didn't make sense for a lot of people. So one student, out of frustration, said, "Oh, there is no such raga," and that turned out to be the correct answer. And let me go ahead and instead of making it a quiz, let me go ahead and give the reason. In the Ra Re Ru scheme that Dr. Padma beautifully illustrated, the Re and the Ga refer to the one and the same note. So you cannot have a Melakarta with the scale Sa Re Gama Padanisa. I mean, Arohanam. So I thought it was a trick question. I really liked it. I have used that. I conduct quizzes and I have used that and got some, laughs and raised eyebrows. So I thought I will share that to this audience. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Wonderful.
Yes, thank you.
And we have another question from Jyoti. Jyoti Garu, please unmute yourself.
Hi, my name is Aditi. So I have two questions. First is there a limit on the maximum number of Janya ragas that can be derived from one Melakarta raga? And my second question is that we know that there are 72 Melakarta ragas, but how many Janya ragas are there as of now?
Ma'am, do you want to, ma'am?
Yes. Okay. See, Janya ragas are still invented by so many artists are creating so many new ragas even today. So there is no full stop for coming new ragas now. But what is the first question? 72?
Is there a
Sorry?
cap on the number of janyas that a mela can have? Is there any limit to number of janyas?
No.
She is asking, is there a limit to how many number of janyas
No.
can be there can be in a mela?
See, no. There is no limit. If you take Mayamala Golai, if you see that Sangeeta Sampradaya Prashni, 31 janyas are there. So if in some ragas, the Aronaranam is same, but the phrases are different. So for one Melakatta Raga, there will be lot of Janya ragas. There is no limitation.
Okay.
There is no limitation. Because even if you take Kedaragole and Suruti, most of the scale is given as same, Sarimapanisa, Sanidapa Magarisa, in most of the books. Like that, you can have so many ragas in the same Aronaranam in Harikamboji, but the phrases will be different. So, with same Aronaranam, with same set of swaras, even without Anya swara, so many ragas can be there in for one Melakatta raga. There is no limitation. But the ragas will be different, definitely.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. And then, so is there any list on how many Janya ragas there are in total as of now?
It's very difficult. Even now, Kanyakumari Amma is
Inventing
creating so
her
many
own.
new ragas. Yes. So there is no limit. But I can say one thing. If you compare from that is the previous century, in this century, lot of new ragas invented. No doubt in it. If it is only 60% in last century, now it is more than 100%. More than 100. Why I am saying more than 100, still it is coming. So we can't put full stop.
Yeah.
So many new ragas, especially Mutte Bhavadar. He created so many ragas.
Yeah.
All are popular. So many musicians are singing them also now.
Thank you. Thank you,
Also,
Amma.
Thank you so
just
much, ma'am.
one thing I'd like to add, and this recent explosion in the number of new ragas that we are inventing is also tied to the history of how we perceive our ragas. The minute we moved from the point where a raga has to be a set of phrases to a scale, so the minute we decided that I can intellectually make permutations and combinations and create a raga, and when we develop the capability to convert any scale into a melody, that is when the explosion started, and we are not stopping anytime soon. So like ma'am said, every day people are creating new ragas.
Yes.
And it's going to go on.
I also want to add one point here. See, if you take Kararapriya, by omitting Panjamam, we are getting Sri Ranjani. Like that, among all the 72 ragas will have one Shadava raga without Pa.
Yeah.
For example, we don't know how many ragas are like that in practice, but it is possible. Like that, we can create so many ragas.
Even the very fact that we are saying Sri Ranjani is Karahara Priya without Pa, it's a shift in mental approach because the two ragams are very different. Okay, the actual phrases behave in a very different way, but for us, in our heads, we think that Sri Ranjani is Karahara Priya minus Pa, Abhogi is Sri Ranjani minus Ni. So this is how we have looked at it in this way, and that has been also a reason why we are inventing so many ragams.
Thank you, Padma Garu. We have a couple of more questions here.
Thank you.
Mallika Vadlamani Garu, please go ahead, unmute yourself and ask your question. Mallika Garu.
Namaste, R.S. Jayalakshmi ma'am and Padma ma'am. Thank you for the wonderful and comprehensive webinar. So my question, Padma ma'am, is connected to something you have been just saying now. So as far as determination of the Melakarta raga for a particular Janya raga is concerned, is that a scalar-based determination or a phrase-based determination? Or then what happens to, what about ragas like Mohana, or what about any of the Audava ragas or Shadava ragas, where how is the ambiguity there dealt with?
That's a wonderful question. In fact, it was a part of our presentation also, but then because of time, lack of time, we cut it short. Thank you for asking this. So let me just rephrase Mallika's question for the benefit of everybody. Let us assume we have an Audava Raga, which has only 5 notes. What determines which mela it will be put as a Janya under? So that's the question. For example, she said Mohana. Mohana goes sa, ri, ga, pa, da, sa. So Mohana doesn't have ma and ni, right? So it could come under a variety of ragas. It could come under Kalyani, it could come under Harikamboji, it could come under Shankarabharanam, it could come under so many. There are different options available. And for in the case of many Varjya ragas, this multiplicity of possibility in the case of its mela is very much a fact. Now, how the question is, how do we decide what determines the placement of a certain raga under a certain mela? Now that there are different considerations, there is no one set path. Some people would think that the raga where an Audava raga can be placed with a raga that has the closest phrasal resemblance, that some people may say. Some people may look at it from the historical point of view. Historically, it has been like this. Some people might say, for example, now people put Mohana under Harikamboji, but some people decide that no, Mohana has so much more resemblance to Mohana Kalyani, which was not there. Earlier on, there was no Mohana Kalyani. Now there is Mohana Kalyani. Therefore, they said that the resemblance is so much more, maybe we should put it under Mohana. So right now, there is no clear-cut rule as to which raga a Janya is put under. If the mela, if the Swaresthanas match with that mela, it is an acceptable thing to do. But that being said, there are some conventions that, so for example, for a very, 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 very long time, Ananda Bhairavi has been put under the 20th Mela Nata Bhairavi, whereas the present day Ananda Bhairavi, we have discussed this in class, I think, the
Yes,
present
ma'am.
day Ananda Bhairavi has no Shuddha Daivata except in 1 or 2 phrases. Mostly it is Chatushriti Devata, but even now some books and music colleges still call it, a Janya of the 20th Mela. So sometimes there is historical, there are some legacies that we kind of inherit, and sometimes music colleges change it right at the outset, but for now most people would call Mohana a Janya of Harikamboji, though there are multiple possibilities. R.S. Jayalakshmi ma'am, would you like to add anything to this, ma'am?
This point is correct. In fact, even 1904 written book, Sambradaya Prashni classifies Mohanam under Kalyani only.
Oh,
We
wow.
can say, like phrases, in Mohanam, you can oscillate Gandharam. So that the oscillation of Gandharam is only possible in Kalyani, so it may come under that mela, we don't know. And what she says is correct. Sometimes in some phrases, the touch of Pradimadimam is there in Kalyani, Mohanam.
Yes.
So in olden days, it is classified under Kalyani. But now, the first mela which is closer to this scale is taken as the mela.
Mm-hmm.
Because the Chadusri Rishabha Antara Gandhara Chadusri Daivata combination comes only first in the Harikambodi mela. So Mohanam comes under that. These are all recent, what do you say, thinking. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, madam. There are 2 more questions. We'll take 2 more questions. Okay. Ranjani Narasimhan Garu. Madam, please go ahead. You are the next question.
Namaste Padma ma'am and RSJ ma'am. This is Ranjani. So happy to be here and get so much of information. One doubt that I had was ma'am was mentioning that under the in Sankita Sampradaya, in the Sampradaya Pradarshini, she was mentioning that Maya Madhava Gaulai has 31 Janya ragas, and just even if they have a common Arohanam and Avarohanam, that they have different phrases. So I would like to see some demonstration of any 2 ragas that have same Arohanam and Avarohanam and how they have differentiated the phrases in that ragam. It'll be interesting to listen to that.
Sure. If you take
Kannada
Kannada Bangala and Malahari,
Malahari.
both these ragas are having same Aronaranam. Same way, even if you take Sama and Natanarayani.
Okay.
These two ragas are handled by Dikshadhar. Two compositions are there separately in these two ragas. The scale is same. But
Okay.
some phrases, for example, if you take Sama, the phrase will go like this. This is Sama. Whereas in Natanarayani, so the Sa to Pa glide is more in Sama. Sorry, in Natanarayani.
Natanarayani.
Okay.
Yes.
So,
So is it
okay.
yes. If it is it the only phrase difference we differentiate the two ragas? Yes. Sometimes even Durga and Suddha Saveri. If you give Sadama, it is Durga. Even Durga is not a Carnatic music raham, but Durga. So by omitting one note in a scale or even that is Dhanasri and Karnataka Devagandhari. These are all ragas like that. Same swara varieties, same set of Aronaranam. There is no extra note in that. There is no foreign note. Even then, the phrases differentiate the two ragas. Wonderful. Like that, in Mayamalagola 30, among the 31, the Kannada Bangala, sorry I said Kannada Gola wrongly, Kannada Bangala and Malahari both are the having the same Aronaranam set of Aronaranam, but with a different scale. Magama is allowed in Kannada Bangala, if I am not wrong. It is not allowed in
Malahari.
And
like
if you ma'am, if you don't mind, I will just because we took the case of Kannada Bangala and Malahari, just let's look at the opening of the two compositions in Kannada Bangala and in Malahari. So pada ma pada pa ma ga re sa pada sa. This is the opening of the Malahari composition. Whereas if you look at Kannada Bangala, there is a very characteristic da ma pa. That is a very Renuka Devi Samrakshitoham. So the very opening, Dikshitar makes it a point to bring out that Kannada Bangala, the most important part, the phrase or the standout point of Kannada Bangala is in that Dama Pa. So if you put the phrases in place, then the Arohanam Avarohanam is not the important part. And one more thing, if I'm not mistaken, there are 3 ragas in the Mayamala Janya set with Sarigama Padanisa Sanidapa Magarisa. So no Vajja, everything. Full Sarigama Padanisa Sanidapa. I think there is Purvi, there is one more, there are 2 more, there are 3 ragas. Sorry, I'm not able to recollect the names at this moment. But all these Janyas have the same Arohana Avarohana, and this goes to tell us that the way ragas were perceived at that time was not based on Arohanam Avarohanam like we do today. The prominence and the importance that we accord to the Arohanam Avarohanam, it's pretty much like the fundamental Lakshana of any ragam today, right? That was not how it was, particularly in as far as the legacy of the Dikshitar school comes. They seem to have had a very phrase-based approach to every raga, and therefore, even if there were overlapping Arohanam Avarohanams, it didn't matter because the Lakshana of the raga was defined by the phrase and not defined by the Arohana Avarohana. So we are looking at something from a different point in time with the lens of today, which may not make complete sense.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Thank you.
Thank you. And the final question is in the chat here from Sunita Veluri. She says, Namaste, I have heard people talk about Raga Lakshana. Would you clarify what that means? And then the second part of that question is, and also how can you use a Raga's Lakshana to identify a Raga? It's a 2-part question, and this would be the final question. Either of you can take that, Padma Garu or RS.
Ma'am, would you like
to? It's about Raga Lakshana.
So I will say something, then if you want to add something, you will do. See, Raga Lakshanam, while writing, see, when the theory papers comes, Raga Lakshanam is an important topic, so that only it is written, and we are also learning it. There is no connection between the Raga Lakshanam and the practical thing. First, we know that it is the janya of this mela, and this is the scale, this is the notes taken by this raga, and these things are there. It's okay, but melodic aspects are not taken. What do you say? Taken from your Raga Lakshanam. It is only by sound we are learning. But we need Raga Lakshanam, because by knowing this is coming under this mela, we are able to understand, oh, these are all the note varieties in this raga. In some cases, for example, this is the Grahaswaram, this is the Amsaswaram, this is the Nyasaswaram. So these points are very important. They actually, even in Chadurdandi Prakasika, the ragas are classified according to their Grahaswara and Amsaswaras. So that much important. For example, if you take Kambodi and Shankaraparanam, the Purvanga part is mostly same. But in Shankaraparanam, the Gandharam is a powerful note to start the Alabana. Whereas in Kambodi, it's not necessary. You can start with Ma. Like that, the Grahaswaram, the elongation of a note or the weak note, these are all sometimes given in this Raga Lakshanam, and that is help us to understand the Raga in a better way. No doubt in it. But it is a morning raga. It is there in Hindustani music also. This is very ancient raga. These are all not going to add any melodic beauty to that raga. This is by view. You want to add something? You can tell.
Yes, the difficulty primarily lies in translating sound onto paper. When you want to put sound and write and define it, it makes it extremely hard, and therefore we have to resort to some techniques, like ma'am said. We have to define it around what is the Grahaswara, what are the Amshaswaras, what are the Nyasaswaras, and sometimes, and the most important part and most relevant part of a Raga Lakshana is the Sancharas of the Raga, particularly the Visesha Prayogas. So if any raga has special prayogas that are mention worthy of mention, then you describe them and how they are sung. There may be Bhashanga Swaras, you mention in what context and how they are to be used, whether they are to be elongated, whether they are to be sung short, whether they have to be given as a touch. All of that they try to put in words what you present in the what you present as song as or as improvisation. But in essence, you're basically talking about the grammar of a raga. You want to understand the nuts and bolts, and that's what Raga Lakshana is about. And the second part of your question, how can you use Raga Lakshana to identify a raga? Primarily, you will identify ragas when you can identify the phrases. So that way, when you learn phrases as part of the Raga Lakshana, you are equipping yourself to be able to identify ragas. That, and at times you can just identify it with the Swarasthanas. There are some ragas that you can identify with Swarasthanas itself. That is also possible, and that also is a part of what you learn as Raga Lakshana. I hope that answered your question.
Thank you very much, Dr. R.S. J. Madam and Dr. Padma Garu. It is a wonderful, informative session. Thank you. I know we went probably half an hour longer than what we initially anticipated, but it's a wonderful, very informative session. And for everybody who joined today, thank you for joining in. And more details you can find about University of Silicanandra programs on our website, universityofsilicanandra.org. Thank you. And these webinars are also recorded and they will be posted on our website a few days after the event is over. And we would have another very informative session from the University of Silicanandra exactly the same time next Friday. So please dial in. And I would like to take this opportunity to thank the professors of the University of Silicanandra, our Board of Trustee, Dr. M.A. Catalin, Sridev Garu from the Admissions Office, Denababu Garu from the Finance Team and Administration, and all the students of University of Silicanandra and everyone else that joined us today. Enjoy your weekend. Thank you. Namaskaram.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you all.
Thank you.